Well, hi everybody, and welcome back to Valley Happenings. And if you're a first-time viewer, we just interview a lot of people and share a lot of great information from across the nation and locally right here. And I want to thank all of you in Alabama for watching and just encourage me with the show. Well, right now our guest today is from Franklin, Tennessee. It's Sheryl Griffin. She's the author of A Scarlet Cord of Hope. It is her story, and it's her journal put into a book about her life in an abusive, painful relationship. Okay, and now living, you lived on your own for a period of time, and then you married Doug Griffin, who is your husband and a radio personality in the Nashville area. But to getting to that point, everything you went through. Now, you lived with your father. After her parents were divorced, you went with your father, who was loving, gave you things, but just didn't give you that emotional.
Right.
It wasn't the hugs and the kisses and the laughter and the games, but materialistically, you got the things you needed.
Right. The necessities, yes.
Okay, then at 18, you marry a man that you knew, a child that you knew had problems, but you got married. Now, you're in the married life. He abuses you. I mean, really bad.
Yes. At the beginning of our marriage, there was a time where I actually had to leave the house. I snuck out after he passed out and went to a neighbor's house, and I had the black eyes. I was bruised. I was bloody, and my parents, my mom and my stepdad came and rescued me. And within days, I went back, mainly because he was sorry. And he also told me that he had gone through all the medicine, even all the Tylenol, because he couldn't trust himself if I decided not to come back.
Oh, and he threw everything away.
That's what he said. And then when I decided to come home, because I felt like I couldn't live, he needs me. I can't live with the guilt if he does something. When I went home, just for my own curiosity, I looked to see if all of the things were there. There was nothing missing. So he said that to get me home.
And you came back.
And I came back. And the thing is, I know every abusive relationship is different. The way that ours was dysfunctional and abusive was that there wasn't abuse every day. There was love. There were moments where I felt that he genuinely loved me. He bought me great presents. He was kind and gentle. There were moments and seasons in our 9 years where there was genuine good things, but mixed in there, it was a constant walking on eggshells for me, because I never knew what was going to trigger him, and I never wanted to make him mad, and so I stuffed a lot of things inside.
Okay, and all this comes to a head eventually, where you have an anxiety attack that takes you to the hospital, and you think you're having a heart attack.
Right, I think I'm dying. This is now 20
years
later. And what had happened is, basically, he had come out of my life completely. We had a daughter who was getting ready to graduate high school, and he just kind of disappeared off the face of the earth, and that's a story in itself. But so I felt this freedom of, even though I had been out of the day-to-day relationship with him, there was still contact.
Because of the daughter.
Yes, and I was determined to not do what my parents did to her, even though this was an abusive relationship, and I kept the face on, and so anyway.
But in here you're hurting.
In here I'm hurting, yeah. And so that, and then my mother moved away, which was another part of the picture, and so my brain just said, you're in a safe place, and it's time we're going to deal with this. And so I ended up having a very, very severe panic and anxiety attack.
And this is very common.
I'm finding out, yes, as I have been sharing my story for a while, it's very common. Men and women suffer.
And you get to the point where your body says, I can't, and your brain, your body says, I can't take anymore. I have to explode this. And you have a panic attack that shakes you and says, okay, I need some help.
Yes, I really did think I was dying. We had 2 ambulance rides, 3 ER visits, and numerous tests and doctor visits. They kept saying, "This sounds like panic," and I was mad. This is not panic. I know what panic and worry is, and I know I can be a worrywart, but I am dying. And enough so that I had told my husband at one point, you know,
and this is when you're married to Doug.
Yes, my wonderful
And you have this wonderful marriage.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, you're probably coming down, but there's still something that triggered it off.
Yes, there was a situation with a not so good neighbor that kind of triggered things, and that triggering and the fact that I felt like there was safety, that I didn't have to deal with my ex-husband at all anymore, and my mother was out of the picture. That's when my body and my brain. So once I finally accepted the diagnosis, I was determined to fight it and not live with this anymore. And I found an incredible doctor who diagnosed me with post-traumatic stress disorder, panic and anxiety. And I began therapy with her and saw her for 9 months. And I actually was put on an antidepressant. And I kept thinking, but I don't feel depressed. But it did help me with my therapy to be able to, as I say, pull everything out from the rug and face it and look at it. And just move forward with it. And then she took me to another doctor that has been doing EMDR therapy. And I always forget what EMDR means, but it's not hypnosis, it's nothing like that, but basically it helps to reprocess traumatic memories. You don't forget them, but you reprocess them. So an example would be the chapter that I titled The Beating. Where I talk very openly and graphic about the severe beating. There would have been no way in the world that I could have written all that out and not had some kind of severe panic attack. I have shared that story several times. I read that chapter in a writer's group, and I could have never done that without feeling that knot in my stomach and nauseated and just sweating and you know, now. So
you can do it.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Wow. Okay, and again, the key is, part of the key is to talk to someone. But people are afraid to talk to people because they may be judged. Okay, they may tell somebody and then it's all over town. Who do you go to? I mean, I could hear somebody out there go, where do I go? Where do I find? I mean, do you go to your minister at your church?
You have to find a safe person, and only you can judge who that safe person is. And then from there, now there is so many resources out there with
we have nonprofits that will help.
Domestic violence shelters that will put you in safe places. The police need to be involved. I mean, you have to be proactive to get out of it, and you have to recognize that you do not deserve this. Nobody deserves
your fault.
it. No, no matter how mad you made him.
I had a girlfriend who was, you know, she and her husband were extremely wealthy and black and blue. And she went to a safe house. And she was there for a while. Then she got an apartment. And then she went back to him.
That happens. That happens. I went back, but I also didn't have anybody telling me not to go back and walking me through it.
Good point.
And I know for a fact that there are people. I have a family member right now who has chosen to go back to her abuser, and she's read my book. She knows.
But will she may recognize it the next time, or is the next time might be too late?
I'm praying that it's not.
But
it could
be. That's a
be.
chance. The next time might be the end.
Yes.
Okay. One other thing that Sheryl does in her book is she writes the chapters, and she tells you, and she's very honest in the book about her relationships. Why it's very honest. But at the end of the chapter, she writes, what I learned from this.
What I know now.
What I know now. And she shares with you things that if you're having this situation, what you know now that could help someone. So in each situation, you learned something, and you wrote a journal, and that's where the book came from, your journal, because that's part of the healing.
Yes. Writing is very therapeutic. My doctor, when I kept trying to put the pieces together of why this, why that, how come I made that choice, why did I do this, she said, you need to journal, just journal.
Because she can't tell you why you did it.
Right.
You know, when we talked
That's
about
right.
medicine before, people taking medicine or something, and like your mother with the alcohol,
Right.
she thought that was the cure, but it wasn't.
Right.
But somebody's saying, oh, now, this is why you do this, so don't do it anymore. You have to figure it out. You have to solve the problem yourself.
It's hard work. And
Oh.
it's scary because you have to face a lot of things that maybe are uncomfortable for you or that you're ashamed of. But the thing is, you don't have to hold on to that.
Because, I mean, with anxiety attacks and you could eventually have a heart attack, couldn't you?
Yeah, I think that it would be hard, but I think it could happen because your heart rate is going up. You know, everything.
I mean, it's not
is
healthy to have anxiety
Right.
attacks.
Right.
Okay, we know that's not healthy.
No, don't suffer.
So if you're having anxiety attacks, and go to a doctor, because that can be, I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know what that can involve with, but it sure doesn't sound good.
Right, and there are things that you can do. I have a list in the book of things that I keep in my tools in my basket. So breathing exercises, drinking
Water.
ginger tea or
Yeah,
peppermint tea. Peppermints, those are all soothing, and so those help. Breathing, getting yourself out of a room and going into another room, just taking a moment to yourself. There's a list of things that you can do. And then if those things do not work for me personally, then I know that I still have medicine that I can go to that calms my nerves, that help me to settle down if I've been severely triggered.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
No, there's no shame in that.
None whatsoever. God made doctors for a reason.
That's right.
And they're there to help you through things.
That's right. And we live in a fallen world.
I mean, that's what I believe.
It's not going to be perfect until we get to heaven. So we're going to have just like if you had diabetes or high blood pressure, you're going to take the medicine. You're going to do what you have to do to take care of yourself.
And you have to take the medicine.
Right.
Or you're going to get, worse in your condition. So if you have this emotional problems or you have mental problems, there's AIDS.
Oh, there is. There's a lot out there.
Okay. The Scarlet Cord of Hope. All right, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back.